I used to work part-time at a small 24-hour diner called McHale's, just off Highway 47. It was not a chain establishment, merely one of those roadside venues where truckers pause for inexpensive coffee and pancakes that resemble cardboard in flavor. I was a broke college kid who needed the money, so I took the night shift. Midnight to 7 a.m. At first I liked it, the quiet, the hum of the neon sign outside, and the jukebox that still worked if you smacked it hard enough. My boss, Randy, trusted me to handle things alone most nights. No one robs a diner that sells cold fries, he used to say, but that changed one Thursday night. It was around 2 a.m., the dead hour when even the highway goes silent. I was refilling the coffee machine when I saw headlights pulling into the lot. The car stopped, engine running, lights on high beam. I waited for the driver to step out, but no one did. After a few minutes, I started feeling uneasy. The lights just stayed there, beaming straight through the diner window like eyes watching me. Finally, I walked outside, wiping my hands on my apron. The night was cold and smelled like rain. "Hey," I called. "Are you okay out there?" Nothing. The car was an old gray sedan, the kind you'd see in the 90s. The windshield was fogged over. I leaned closer and froze. There was someone sitting inside, a man. His face pressed against the glass, staring straight ahead. His eyes were wide open. I knocked on the window. No response. I thought maybe he'd had a heart attack, so I went back inside to grab my phone. When I looked back out the window, the headlights were off. The car was gone, but the diner doorbell jingled. Someone had come in. I turned around and saw a man sitting at the counter, the same man from the car. He was drenched, water dripping off his gray coat, and his skin was pale, almost bluish. He didn't look up when I approached. "Rough night, huh?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He just nodded, then whispered, "Coffee." His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't spoken in days. I poured him a cup. His hand shook when he lifted it, and his sleeve slid down, revealing deep scratches along his wrist. "You need me to call someone?" "Hospital, maybe?" He didn't answer, just stared into his cup. I remember thinking maybe he was on something or in shock, but then I noticed something else. His reflection in the chrome napkin holder didn't match his movement. When he lifted his cup, his reflection stayed still. I stepped back. "Sir?" That's when he looked up at me for the first time. His eyes were black, not dark brown, not shadowed, but black like ink. And he smiled. "Coffee's cold," he said. I glanced at the mug. Steam was still rising from it. Then the jukebox clicked on by itself. It started playing an old country song, warped and scratchy. The same one Randy always played during cleanup, except Randy wasn't there. The man stood up, still smiling. "You shouldn't be here after midnight," he said softly. "Excuse me?" He pointed at the clock above the grill. I turned to look. The clock hands were spinning wildly, faster and faster, until the glass cracked and the second hand stopped at exactly 3 a.m. When I looked back, he was gone. The diner door was still closed. No sound, no footsteps, no tire marks outside. Just silence. I told Randy the next morning, but he laughed. "You've been breathing too much fryer oil." But later that week, when I came in for my shift, police cars were parked outside. Randy was talking to an officer. They'd found a wrecked gray sedan in a ditch a mile down the road. The driver was dead, frozen stiff in the same position I'd seen him, face pressed against the windshield. The officer said he'd been dead for 3 days before they found him. That was impossible. He'd been in my diner 2 nights ago. I quit the next day. Still, sometimes when I drive that stretch of highway, I see headlights behind me that never pass. And if I pull over, they vanish. I tried stopping at McHale's once, months later, just to see it again. But it wasn't there. The whole diner was gone. In its place was an empty lot with an old foundation, cracked and filled with weeds. I asked the gas station attendant down the road about it. He looked at me like I was crazy. "There hasn't been a diner there in years," he said. "Burned down in the 90s. The person who ran it died in a car crash on Highway 47. Now whenever I smell burnt coffee, I think of that night, the humming neon, the spinning clock, and the man in the gray coat whispering that same line. You shouldn't be here after midnight. I was driving through Willow Creek County, heading back to my parents' place after a long stretch of not seeing them. It was early spring, still cold enough that the air bit through my jacket. I'd been on the road since dawn, and by the time it hit 2:30 in the afternoon, I was starving. There wasn't much on that stretch of highway, just endless pine trees and cracked asphalt, but finally, I spotted an old roadside diner with a faded neon sign that said, Willow Creek Eats. I probably should have gone through the drive-thru, but I wanted to stretch my legs. Plus, the car I'd borrowed from my girlfriend was spotless, and she'd made me swear I wouldn't eat in it. When I stepped inside, the place was nearly empty. The air smelled like grease and old coffee. Behind the counter stood an older woman, late 60s maybe, with a warm Midwestern kind of smile that reminded me of my grandmother. "Afternoon, hon," she said. "What can I get you?" "Just some fries and a Coke," I said. Trying to make good time, she nodded. She said, "I'm on my way. Might take a minute. The fryer's slow today." I sat in one of the red vinyl booths by the window, watching the rain start to fall. The road outside shimmered and thunder rolled somewhere far off. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt. Quiet, safe. I was wrong. After a few minutes, a black stretch limousine pulled up outside the diner. At first, I didn't even register it. What would a limo be doing this far from town? But when the driver's door opened, my stomach turned. A woman stepped out. She was wearing a wedding dress. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of photo shoot or prank. But her makeup was streaked down her cheeks, mascara mixed with tears, and her veil hung crooked. She didn't look like a bride. She looked like someone who'd just crawled out of a nightmare. I tried not to stare as she walked straight toward the door. When she came inside, the bell jingled softly. Her heels clicked on the tile, and for a second, the only sound was the buzz of the ceiling light above her. She smiled at me. Thin, forced. "Mind if I sit here?" she asked. Sure," I said, shifting awkwardly in my seat. She sat across from me, folding her hands neatly in her lap. Her gloves were white, mostly. There were faint reddish stains near the fingertips like dried wine or blood. "Are you on your way somewhere?" I asked. She stared at the rain outside. "I was," she said softly. "But not anymore." We sat in silence for a while. I could hear the old woman humming in the kitchen, the faint crackle of oil popping. Then the bride turned to me and said, "Do you think I look ugly?" The question caught me off guard. "No, not at all," I said. She smiled faintly. "He said I did. He said I wasn't the same person he fell in love with. Said he'd rather die than marry me." I didn't know what to say, so I just stared at the table. Her tone shifted suddenly, cold, sharp. "Do you think I'm ugly now?" I looked up. Her smile was gone. Her lipstick was smeared and her eyes looked wrong. Pupils too wide, skin is too pale. Before I could answer, the old woman came out from the kitchen holding my food. "Well, don't you look just darling, sweetheart," she said to the bride. "Thank you," the bride said in that same brittle tone. "But we were talking. Please leave us." The old woman hesitated, clearly unsettled, but she forced a polite smile and went back to the counter. The air felt heavier now, thick, like the oxygen had thinned out. I cleared my throat. "Listen, I should probably get going before the storm hits." The bride's hand shot out, grabbing mine. Her touch was freezing cold. "You're leaving me too?" she said. "No, my parents are waiting." "Everyone leaves," she whispered. "Everyone always leaves." She stood up abruptly, still gripping my hand, and started walking toward the door, dragging me halfway out of the booth. I pulled free, heart racing. "Hey, let go." But she didn't stop. Instead, she turned toward the window. Her reflection didn't move. It stayed there, smiling while the real her just stared at me. Then, the reflection slowly turned its head toward her, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Her face twisted in horror. "No," she whispered. "Not again." The lights in the diner flickered. The old woman screamed from the kitchen, "What's going on out there?" When the lights came back, the bride was gone. I ran outside. The limo door was wide open, the engine still running. Inside, I saw a man slumped in the back seat, his face pale, his tuxedo soaked in blood. His throat was slit, and in his hand was a crushed bouquet. On the seat beside him lay a wedding photo, him and the same bride, smiling on what looked like a bright sunny day. The back of the photo had something scrawled in shaky handwriting, "Till death do us part." The cops arrived an hour later. They found the man's body exactly as I described it, but they never found any trace of the bride or the old woman who ran the diner. The Detective told me something that still keeps me up at night. That same diner, Willow Creek Eats, had burned down over a decade ago. The owner, an older woman named Diane, and a bride on her wedding day had both died inside. They said the groom had murdered her then himself before setting the fire. When they showed me an old newspaper clipping, my blood went cold. The photo of the bride was the same woman who'd sat across from me that day. Now, whenever I drive past that stretch of highway, there's nothing there but a field and a single charred signpost still standing. But sometimes, in the reflection of my car window, I swear I see her, smiling faintly. Veil fluttering in the wind, whispering, "Do you think I look ugly now?" I used to work late-night shifts at a small roadside place called Miller's Grill, just outside Ashmont, Oregon. It wasn't a big restaurant, just a greasy little burger joint with flickering lights, a soda machine that never worked right, and the constant smell of burnt oil clinging to the air. I was 19 back then, saving up for college, and the manager, Tom, liked me because I never complained about closing shifts. What I didn't know was that my last shift there would be the night I'd stop sleeping properly for the rest of my life. It was a Friday night in early summer. The air was hot and heavy with humidity, and the parking lot was empty except for my old Corolla and a few trash bins. Inside, it was just me and Eddie, the fry cook. Eddie was in his 40s, quiet, and always humming some old country tune while working. We'd just finished cleaning up when the front door slammed open so hard it hit the wall. 2 teenage boys walked in. One was tall and lanky with greasy blonde hair, the other shorter, wearing a hoodie pulled tight around his face. They couldn't have been older than 16. The blonde one swaggered up to the counter, smirking. "Yo, old man," he said. "We still have time to get some grub, right?" I glanced at the clock. It was 11:45 p.m. "We closed at midnight." "Sure," I said. "But it's takeout only. Fryer's still hot if you want burgers or chicken." The blonde kid grinned, flashing yellowed teeth. "Make it 2 chicken meals. Big ones." The kid in the hoodie just stood behind him, staring at the floor. His hands were stuffed deep in his pockets, and he kept mumbling something under his breath. When I went to the kitchen to tell Eddie, I said quietly, "Something's off about those 2. He just shrugged. "Late-night drunks, probably. Don't overthink it." While Eddie fried their food, I peeked out through the small kitchen window. The blonde one was pacing around the dining area, running his hand along the tables, tapping on the glass, and glancing at the security camera like he was checking something. The other one hadn't moved. He was still standing by the entrance, muttering to himself. At one point, I swear I heard him whisper my name. Eddie called out, "Order up," and I took the bag to the counter. "That'll be $14.79, I said. The blonde one dropped a crumpled 20 on the counter, but he didn't take the food. Instead, he leaned forward, resting both elbows on the counter, and said in a low voice, "Do you ever wonder what human meat tastes like?" I froze. Before I could respond, the hooded kid started laughing quietly, high-pitched, nervous laughter that didn't sound right. "Don't freak him out, man," he said. "We're just playing," I forced a weak smile. "Yeah, sure." They grabbed their bag and walked to the far table near the windows instead of leaving. I pretended to check the cash drawer just to avoid looking at them. That's when I heard it, a dull thud from the back. Then another. I turned and saw that the kitchen lights had gone dark. "Eddie?" I called out, no answer. I stepped into the kitchen, pulling out my phone for light. The air smelled strange, metallic, sour. Then my shoe stuck to something wet on the floor. When I pointed my phone light down, I saw blood. I saw a thick trail of blood leading toward the storage door. My hands started shaking. I whispered Eddie's name again. Nothing. Before I could move, the blonde kid's voice came from behind me. "Hey," he said softly. "We were going to ask for seconds." I spun around and the flashlight caught his face. He was holding a kitchen knife, Eddie's knife. His hands and shirt were spattered red. The hooded kid was blocking the back door. "Please," I said. "You can take the money, just go." The blonde kid smirked. "Money's boring. Have you ever smelled blood frying in hot oil? Smells sweet. Like bacon." He raised the knife and stepped toward me. I don't remember thinking. My body just moved. I grabbed the bag of flour off the counter and threw it in his face. He screamed, stumbling backward, and I ran toward the front door. but the hooded one tackled me from the side, slamming me into the floor. The knife skittered across the tiles. He leaned down, whispering fast and panicked. "You don't get it, he makes me do it." "I can't stop him." I kicked him off and crawled toward the counter. My phone had slid under it, screen cracked but still glowing. As I reached for it, I heard the fryer erupt behind me, boiling, hissing, popping. The blonde kid was up again. He'd grabbed Eddie's arm, and he was pushing it into the fryer. The sound that came out of him didn't sound human. A wet, gurgling scream that echoed off the metal walls. I ran. I don't even remember unlocking the door. I just remember the blast of humid air hitting my face and the sound of sirens in the distance. When the cops arrived, they found Eddie's body by the fryer and the blonde kid lying next to him. His skin was burned raw, hands melted together. The hooded boy was gone. I told them everything, but they didn't believe me at first. They said it looked like a robbery gone wrong, that Eddie must have fought back. They never found the other boy. But 2 weeks later, I saw his picture on the news. He'd been arrested 3 towns over for killing a gas station attendant with a knife. When they showed the security footage, he was alone. But in one frame, just one, you could see another figure standing behind him, tall, blonde, and smiling. Miller's Grill shut down after that. The building's still there, boarded up and rotting. Occasionally, when I drive past at night, I swear I can see a faint orange glow from the kitchen window, like a fryer still burning long after the power's been cut. And if I listen close enough, I can almost hear Eddie humming that same country song, just under the hiss of hot oil. It had been raining for hours, the kind of rain that soaks through your shoes no matter how fast you run. I was working the night shift at Hunter's Fried Chicken, a quiet little fast food place on the edge of Raven Hollow, Pennsylvania. We closed at midnight, and by 10 p.m., the parking lot was already empty. Only the neon open sign flickered through the downpour, reflecting red against the wet pavement. I sat behind the counter, fighting sleep, listening to the hum of the fryer and the soft patter of rain against the glass. My coworker, Josh, had gone to take the trash out back. He'd been gone for 10 minutes, but I wasn't worried. Josh was lazy. He probably stopped to smoke behind the dumpster again. That's when I saw the headlights. A black car pulled into the parking lot, slow and smooth, splashing water as it came. It didn't park in a normal spot. It drove right up to the door and stopped. The headlights stayed on, bright enough that I had to squint to see. The engine cut off. Silence. Then the driver's door opened, and a tall man stepped out. He was huge, broad shoulders, thick neck, shaved head. His clothes were soaked through in seconds, but he didn't seem to notice. He just stood there in the rain, staring at the restaurant. Something about him made my chest tighten. Still, I was alone at the counter, so I did my job. "Sir, we're still open," I shouted through the glass. "Come on in." He didn't move. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other through the window. Then, without warning, he smiled. A wide, crooked grin, and he started walking toward the door. When the bell above the entrance chimed, I jumped. The man walked in, leaving a trail of muddy water behind him. He didn't say a word, just stood there, breathing hard. Welcome to Hunter's. Can I take your order?" I asked, trying to sound calm. His eyes flicked to the fryer, then back to me. "Make something fresh," he said. His voice was deep, calm, and too steady. "What would you like?" He smiled again. "Anything, as long as it's hot." I punched a random combo into the register and pretended to start prepping. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the tongs. When I turned back, he was gone. At first, I thought maybe he'd gone to the restroom. But the hallway lights were off and the bathroom door was wide open. I called out, "Sir, your food will be ready soon." No answer. The only sound was the fryer sizzling. Then faintly, over the sound of rain, I heard something else, crying. It was coming from outside. I peered through the window and saw someone standing beside the car. A woman, drenched from head to toe, wearing a red dress. Her hair stuck to her face and she looked terrified. "Ma'am, you okay?" I called. She didn't look at me. She just stood there trembling before suddenly jerking her head toward the door and running inside. The bell jingled again as she stumbled over to me. "Please," she gasped, grabbing my sleeve. "Don't let him in," I froze. "Who?" "The man, he's not human," she whispered. Her eyes darted toward the window. "He killed them." "He killed all of them." Before I could react, I saw movement behind her. The man was standing outside again, right where she'd been moments ago. Only this time, he was holding something, a long knife glinting under the parking lot light. I locked the door instantly, dragging the woman behind the counter. "Call the cops," I said, grabbing the phone, but when I lifted it, the line was dead. The power flickered. The neon sign outside sputtered and died. The man began tapping the knife against the glass. Not hitting, just tapping. 1, 2, 3 times. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You should have kept the door open." The glass spider-webbed with cracks as he slammed the blade against it. I pulled the woman toward the kitchen, and we ducked behind the fryers. The oil popped and hissed as if the heat itself was panicking. Josh was still outside, I realized, and I hadn't seen him come back. "Stay here," I told her. She grabbed my arm. "Don't go out there, please," but I had to. The back hallway smelled of rain and metal. When I pushed open the rear door, cold air hit me like a slap. The dumpster was tipped over, trash bags split open, and next to them, Josh's hat. There was blood on the pavement, washed thin by the rain. I turned back toward the door, but before I reached it, I heard a voice behind me. Low. Calm. "You shouldn't have come outside." The man stepped out from the shadows, knife glinting. Lightning flashed, and for half a second, I saw what was wrong with his face. It wasn't a face at all. It was stretched skin, too tight, like it didn't belong to him. His eyes sat too far apart, and his mouth was stitched at the corners. He raised the knife. I slammed the door and ran. I could hear the blade scraping the metal frame as I locked it behind me. When I got back to the front, the woman was gone. The cops arrived 30 minutes later, responding to a 911 call traced from my phone. Except my phone was missing. They found the building empty. No woman, no man, no Josh. Just bloody footprints leading from the back door to the front counter, and one wet handprint on the glass where the man had stood. The security footage showed me alone the entire time. No woman. No intruder. Just me talking to empty air, locking doors, running around the kitchen like I'd lost my mind. They said Josh must have quit and left town. Hunter's closed 2 weeks later after a break-in, but sometimes when I drive by that old parking lot, I swear I still see that black car sitting under the streetlight. The headlights always point straight at the door, and if you stand close enough, you can hear it, that slow, steady tapping against the glass. 1, 2, 3. I used to work at a small fried chicken restaurant called Benny's Chicken Shack, out on the outskirts of Claremont, Ohio. It wasn't part of any franchise, just an old family-owned spot with faded wallpaper, flickering lights, and a sign that buzzed like a dying fly whenever it rained. I'd been there almost 4 years. Started as a cashier and worked my way up to assistant manager. The pay was bad, but Benny, the owner, always told us, "Stick around, and you'll learn the real recipe that made this place famous." Back then, I thought he meant herbs and spices. I wish to God that's all it was. It all started on a Thursday. Benny called me into his office near the end of my shift. The place smelled like oil and wet cardboard. He was sitting behind his desk, sweating even though the AC was on full blast. He looked up and said, "You've been loyal, right? You don't talk to outsiders?" I laughed nervously. "What outsiders?" He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Good, because I'm going to show you how we keep our customers coming back." He pulled out a small silver packet from his drawer. It had no label, just a black number 9. "Special seasoning," he said. "You only use a pinch per batch." "Got it?" I nodded. He stood up, patted my shoulder, and whispered, "Don't ever open it outside the kitchen." That night I closed up by myself. The rain had started tapping the roof like soft fingers. Curiosity got the better of me. I tore open the packet. The smell hit me immediately, not like pepper or paprika. It was sweet like burnt sugar mixed with copper. The powder wasn't even a single color. It shimmered between red and black under the light, like it was alive. I sprinkled a little into the flour bin, fried a test batch, and took one bite. It was incredible, juicy, rich. and full of flavor that shouldn't exist. But the aftertaste made my tongue tingle, almost numb, and for a split second, I swear I heard something, like whispering, coming from the fryer. I threw the rest away and went home. The next day, customers went insane for it. They said it was the best chicken they'd ever tasted. People who'd never eaten here started showing up. Benny grinned ear to ear, counting bills at the register. But by the end of that week, the regulars started to change. They looked sick, pale, twitchy, with dark circles under their eyes. One woman came in 3 nights in a row and ordered a family bucket just for herself. When I tried to tell her we were closing, she looked at me and hissed, "Don't you ever tell me no again." Her pupils were blown wide, her teeth stained red. She grabbed a piece straight from the fryer basket with her bare hand. The oil didn't even burn her. That same night, Benny came in late, around 2 a.m. I was mopping the floor when I heard him humming in the back, the same creepy tune he always whistled when counting cash. But when I peeked through the kitchen window, I froze. He was standing over the fryer, pouring something thick and dark into the oil. It wasn't sauce. It looked like blood. He turned around, caught me watching, and said calmly, "You weren't supposed to see that, kid." I stammered something about cleaning early. He smiled again, that cold, flat smile. "Come here. You might as well learn the full recipe." He reached into the fryer with a long metal spoon. Stirring slowly, the oil bubbled violently, and I could hear something underneath the popping. Faint, wet whispers. When he lifted the spoon, a lump of meat floated up, pale and stringy, like it hadn't come from any chicken I'd ever seen. He dropped it back in and said, "You see? People love the flavor because it's human, familiar. We feed them what they are." I ran. I didn't even grab my jacket. I just bolted out the back door into the rain and didn't stop until I hit the road. I called the police from a payphone, shaking so hard I could barely speak. When they raided the place the next day, they found everything perfectly normal. Clean kitchen, labeled supplies, empty fryer, no sign of blood, no strange packets, no sign of Benny. The official report said he skipped town. But 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was one of those silver packets. It had the number 10 on it this time, and a note that read, "Good managers don't waste the good stuff." I threw it away that night, or at least, I thought I did. The next morning, my apartment reeked of fryer oil. When I opened my kitchen trash, the packet was sitting on top, perfectly clean. I swear I hadn't touched it. Then I heard something faint from the sink, a bubbling sound like oil heating up. When I looked down, the drain was filled with a thick, golden liquid and small red flakes floated on top. The smell was sweet, metallic, and unmistakable. I moved out of that apartment a week later, but even now, years later, I still get anonymous packages every few months, each one smaller than the last, each one labeled with a higher number. I don't open them anymore. I just throw them in the river behind my house. But sometimes when the wind's right, I swear I can smell fryer oil drifting from the water. And sometimes, it smells just like Benny's chicken.